In Brazil, the Supreme Federal Court will begin to examine the action that discusses the violence and lethality of the police that prevails in favelas and communities in the state of Rio de Janeiro. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East denounced that Israeli forces have not allowed food to enter northern Gaza for a month. In the United States, the outgoing President Joe Biden will receive Republican Donald Trump on November 13th to begin a transfer of power that the Democrat promised would be peaceful with his worst political enemy. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Brazil, the Supreme Federal Court will begin to examine on Wednesday the action that discusses the violence and lethality of the police that prevails in favelas and communities in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Such case was based only for the manifestations of the parties and entities involved in the process. The case is in question was called ADPF of favelas and is used to question violations of fundamental rights guaranteed in the Constitution. That action was inserted in 2019 by the Brazilian Socialist Party and the human rights entities and social movements that asked to be recognized by the STF the situation of serious violation of rights committed by security forces in the Carioca favelas. In Argentina, the third Federal Educational March was held this November 12th. Students, teachers, and other members of the educational community marched in several points of the country to defend the public university and demand an increase in the educational budget. The mobilization sought to make visible the critical salary and budgetary situation that public education is going through in view of the lack of funding caused by the government of Javier Milei, who vetoed the university financing law. In Buenos Aires, several sectors such as health and aeronautics supported the measure in the vicinity of the Obelisco. Demonstrators were intimidated by a huge and disproportionate presence of police.
The university is coming from a very hard year. The government has been attacking and destroying education at all levels. Not only in the university, but it is something generalized. Even we who have an artistic background, we see an attack that is also widespread in education, in culture, and even in health, as well as in all areas. It is a government that is coming for everything, and we are coming from a year in which we have organized ourselves with different measures of all kinds, such as this flash move.
In Peru, social movements in the province of Sardin announced that they will continue the protest measure against insecurity and the government of Dina Boluarte. Social movements announced a national popular strike scheduled from November 13th to the 15th, with the purpose of demanding effective action against crime and corruption. They claim that crimes has put at risk the security, life, and right to work of citizens, problems not adequately addressed by the government. In this context, social movements call on all citizens in urban neighborhoods and rural communities to join in the mobilization, adding that it will be carried out in a peaceful but forceful manner. And in Ecuador, numbers of recent massacres against state guards during the neoliberal governments of Lenin Moreno, Guillermo Lasso, and Daniel Noboa continue to increase. Let's review some data. At least 21 prison massacres have been counted from 2021 to the present, leaving no less than 507 people killed while in state custody. During Lenin Moreno's administration, which spanned from 2017 to 2021, around 84 people in state custody were killed, while in the government of Guillermo Lasso between 2021 and 2023, 408 inmates were murdered. Currently, the government of Daniel Noboa registered at least 15 people murdered in prison massacres less than a year after assuming the presidency of the Ecuadorian country. And on November 13th and the 14th, the Ibero-American Business Meeting number 15 will be held in Cuenca, Ecuador, and will address issues of great relevance for the development of the region, such as sustainability and tourism. This meeting, which has been built through an ongoing efforts of the Inter-American business space, is a platform for dialogue and cooperation between business leaders, governments, and international organizations. In recent months, multiple forums have been organized that have culminated in the creation of key documents which will be addressed at this meeting and will serve as a roadmap to establish lines of actions to promote the development and growth of Iberoamerica. And in El Salvador, family members demand proof of life of prisoners under the emergency regime established on March 22, 2022, on the government of Nayib Bukele. Through the Proof of Life campaign, hundreds of Salvadoran families are demanding authorities to inform about the status of many people detained without clear evidence or valid charges. The lack of access to prisoners and prohibition of visits have contributed to the uncertainty, since they do not know where their family members are or even if they are alive. According to reports from different human rights organizations, approximately 30,000 of the 83,000 detainees are innocent. And the Russian Minister of Emergency Situations, Alexander Kurenkov, arrived in Havana, Cuba, to strengthen bilateral cooperation between the two countries. The high-ranking official was received by Russia's ambassador to Cuba, Victor Coronelli, together with representatives of the Caribbean country. Precisely, the diplomat's visit, aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation in the area of natural disasters mitigation, comes in the midst of the energy crisis the island faces after the strike of Hurricanes Oscar and Rafael, and the perceptible earthquake that hit the eastern region. We now have a first short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations Refugee Organization agency said that Israeli forces have not allowed food to enter northern Gaza for a month. The international organization described the situation in the Gaza Strip as catastrophic, warning that the delivery of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian enclave has reached its lowest level in recent months. It also denounced that despite the famine situation faced by the people of Palestine, Tel Aviv regime does not allow the UN organization to enter the area. For its part, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates that some 95,000 people remain trapped in northern Gaza at risk of death from Israeli bombardment or starvation. On Tuesday, local Palestinian authorities declared that Israeli occupation forces killed and wounded several Palestinian citizens in the cities of Gaza and Han Yunis. In addition, they also reported that the Israeli attack, which resulted in at least one death, targeted civilians in the town of Kisan Rashwan, located in the southwest of Han Yunis. There were also reports of the attack on a house northwest of the city of Gaza by Israeli occupation forces fighter jets, which left several civilians dead and wounded. The total burning of the Mahdi al-Shawa school, where displaced Palestinians were being housed in Ben Hanun, north of Gaza. At least 33 people were killed this November 12th in Israeli bombings against several regions throughout Lebanon, especially in the southern parts of Beirut. In this context, Hezbollah announced that missiles were launched against an airbase south of Tel Aviv, central Israel. It also dropped explosive drones on a military base near Nahariya in the north. According to Israeli authorities, 2 men were killed by rocket fire. More than 3,300 people have been killed in Lebanon. According to authorities, since the fighting began in October 2023, most of the victims died after the start of the Israeli offensive last September. And in Mozambique, the opposition leader and presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane called for new protests against the alleged fraud committed in the elections of last October 9th. In this sense, he urged his followers to demonstrate in ports, border posts, and big cities starting this Wednesday. Since October 21st, the presidential aspirant has called for general strike days and mobilizations against the alleged irregularities in the elections. Although the election day was calm, the observation mission of the European Union found irregularities in the counting of votes. Mondolin assures that the objective is not to carry out a coup d'etat, but to put pressure on the institutions of justice so that the electoral truth is restored. And Somaliland, the self-proclaimed independent region of Somalia, kicked off presidential elections on Wednesday amid regional tensions. More than 1 million people will vote in this election process. 3 candidates are running for the presidency, including the country's current president, Musbihid Abdi, who has been in power since 2017 and whose mandate was extended for 2 years in 2022 due to alleged technical and financial obstacles. The elections take place during a diplomatic crisis with Somalia following the agreement signed last January, where Somaliland government granted Ethiopia access to the Red Sea. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The outgoing President of the United States, Joe Biden, will receive the Republican Donald Trump on November 13th in the Oval Office to begin a transfer of power that the Democrat promised will be peaceful with his worst political enemy. 2 days after the clear victory of the Republican against Kamala Harris, Biden pledged to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition of power. The meeting will take place in the Oval Office and will be the first step in that process heading into Donald Trump's second term. While he defeated, the Vice President, a former Democratic candidate, also pledged to help Trump in the transfer of power, statements that contrast with the attitude of the Republican following the 2020 elections. In the United States also, President-elect Donald Trump announced his choice of Tesla and social media ex-owner Elon Musk to head a new government efficiency department, along with former Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Trump claimed that together they will pave the way for his administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, reduce excess regulations, cut wasteful spending, and restructure federal agencies. The new Department of Government Efficiency will provide guidance from outside the U.S. government, work with the administration and budget authorities to drive large-scale structural reform, and create an entrepreneurial approach to government. In the United States, the private company Kasi Premier Technology was found responsible for torture at the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq and will have to pay $42 million to the victims. Civilian employees of this company were accused of encouraging U.S. soldiers to mistreat prisoners in Abu Ghraib in preparation for interrogations. The 3 survivors, a high school principal, a food vendor, and a journalist, were given $14 million each in damages. The lawsuit indicated that most of the abuses occurred in 2003 during the U.S. occupation of Iraq. In Chile, authorities declared a red alert this November 12 due to several simultaneous outbreaks of forest fires in 51 communes, mainly in the regions of Valparaiso, Metropolitana, O'Higgins, and Maule. The declaration of red alert allows the identification of areas that could have a higher risk of combustion and spread of forest fires. The National Forestry Corporation indicated that so far the fires have consumed 160 hectares in the areas of Los Molles, Quilpue, and Valparaiso. In view of the spread of the forest fires, the evacuation of residents in communes such as Los Molles, Quilpue, and Villa Alemana is being evaluated. Meanwhile, in Cuba, until Tuesday afternoon, 1,966 aftershocks were registered after the earthquakes that occurred on Sunday in Pilon, Granma Province. According to the Doctor of Science, Enrique Arango, head of the National Seismological Service, 71 aftershocks were presumably perceptible, and the investigators will be able to determine soon the intensity of the earthquake of magnitude 6.7 on the Richter scale that shook the east of Cuba more than 48 hours ago. Cuban civil defense party and government officials toured the provinces affected by the earthquake. And the Cuban Meteorological Service reported in the center of the tropical wave that is active in the Caribbean region in the morning of November 12th has formed a wide zone of low pressure, forecasting the formation of a tropical storm that could become a hurricane. This system will move slowly over the next few days with a course close to the west over the western Caribbean Sea. There it will find favorable conditions, both atmospheric and sea level, for a better organization and development, with a high probability of becoming a tropical cyclone within 2 or 3 days. Since a cyclonic organism has not yet formed, and given the changeable nature of the atmosphere, neither the trajectory nor the intensity can be predicted with certainty. And in Indonesia, the Lewotowi Laki-Laki volcano spewed more plumes of hot ash into the air Wednesday following a major eruption that killed at least 9 people on November 4th. During the day, smoke was seen rising from the crater and villages were completely covered with ash, forcing residents to move to temporary shelters. Several international airlines suspended flights to and from the island of Bali, keeping thousands of passengers stranded at the airports. The volcano, of more than 1,500 meters approximately, is located on the remote island of Flores in the province of East Nusa Tenggara. And on Wednesday, India's capital, New Delhi, dawned covered by a grayish blanket of environmental pollution that partially prevented visibility, thus becoming the most polluted city in the world. According to measurements by the Swiss platform IQ Air, the level of air quality in the Indian capital is hazardous to health. A combination of factors such as the burning of agricultural waste, industrial emissions, and adverse weather conditions generate a dense layer of smog that envelops the city. Before New Delhi, the Pakistani city of Lahore had topped the ranking of the world's most polluted cities in recent weeks. And Caracas gets ready to host its first International Poetry Book Fair, to be held from November 14th to the 17th. The event will take place at the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, Rómulo Gallegos, under the slogan, "A World of Poetry in Just One Place." The literary celebration will be attended by poets from 14 countries and will also include the participation of more than 30 national and international publishers. The program features a variety of activities during the 4 days of the fair, including exhibition, forums, book sales, lectures, recitals, and workshops for the public. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.